G'day everybody, this is the help desk guy. Thought we might just have a look at some of the problems that are having with our Lancaster with repaints, but also could be used in other repaints should you need them as well. So I'm going to be working on someone else's paint this time. This guy is a bloke called Raven, and he's made Just Jane. So Raven has contacted us separately via email to ask about some help with his liveries. So anyway, we're using his Just Jane livery. We've downloaded it already. You can see it down here in the open here in 7-zip just here, just to show you this is on flightsim.2's good looking livery. Now his problem, and a problem that a lot of repainters are having, is that it defaults to the H2S model. Now we will go through why that is in a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to unzip. Well, I've already unzipped it. We're going to go through a couple of things that I like to do when I'm making my liveries, and we'll continue. So we'll just open it up. Let's say that you've actually renamed it. Inside, you'll find there's a layout.json, a manifest.json, and a simobjects folder. And Raven goes as far as giving you the MSFS layout generator.exe, which is kind of handy because we need that because we're going to be making a modification. Or if you're a repainter and you're not using the in-game livery creator, then you're going to need this as well. It's quite cool. It's very simple to use. Okay, so we're going to dive into this. Now, one quick thing that we should mention, if you're new to repainting, and this is repainting for everything, not just Aeroplane Heaven products, is this layout.json needs to be reconfigured or generated, as you can see by this MSFS layout generator, every time you make a change. If you make a change and don't redo the layout.json, it simply won't change. You won't see anything in the game. So we're going to go into the simobjects folder, and you'll see that basically you'll see airplanes. Now, if you're an old head, you'll see, oh, well, this is very similar to P3D and FSX. Yes, it is. So I've gone into the simobjects. There's the airplanes. Let me just double check to make sure that that is actually the name of it in here. Yes, it is. So it is underscore. So he's used underscore here. And in here, that is what you will achieve. Now, a couple of problems with this. So what you're seeing here is my modification. Essentially, I'm leaving the model folder completely blank. Now, those repainters out there are saying to themselves, well, that's going to show me the H2S. Now, why is it showing the H2S? Well, unfortunately, the game sees the last flight sim entry of our main variant as the variant that you wish to use. If you open up the aircraft.config of the AH Lancaster in your community, go here, pop here, simobjects, airplanes, AH Lancaster. If you open this up and you scroll all the way down to the very bottom, you'll see the last entry is flightsim.7, and note the model equals H2S there. So the game believes that the stock standard Lancaster, because of the way it's set up, is the H2S, and that is why you're always getting the H2S. But there is a way around it. It's all written in the SDK, but it's buried very, very deep, actually. When I went to find it again, just to make sure that it was there, it was not where I thought it was going to be. So hopefully this video will help. Unfortunately, I had a crash right then and there. I was probably doing too much at the same time. I'm also trying to compile a plane that we will not talk about in this video. So I've reset, and so we're now where we were just before, but what I've done is I've actually opened up the aircraft.config in the code editor rather than the normal everyday notepad so that you can see it a little bit more. We're going to leave this off to the side, and we're actually going to do the changes that are required, and then we'll come back to this to make an edit afterwards. So what's the trick? Well, the trick is to basically force, well, it's not force, it's part of the SDK, but basically tell the game to take the information from your livery and override or take precedence over what you find in Aeroplane Heaven's folder. So we'll go back to the community, we'll go into AH Lancaster, we'll go into simobjects, airplanes, we'll go to the model, and we're going to, because I'm quite a lazy bloke, we're going to take the entire folder. We only actually need that file there, but we're going to take the whole folder. because I'm just lazy. I'm using copy on the keyboard. I've copied it, and I'm going to go back. We're going to go into the Lancaster, and we're going to go into Sim Objects, Airplanes, the name of the livery, and at this level, paste it in there. Now we're going to open this up, and we're going to remove these 3 files. Now, some of you guys might be saying, well, actually, you can actually leave that there. Well, no, not really, because unfortunately, or fortunately, we make our code in a very modular system, rather like FS 2024 does with geometry. It's a little different, but it's very similar in the respect that we bring in code from other sources. So this will not work. So we'll remove these 3 files, and we'll open up the model.config. I will open it up in here so that you can see it properly. It tabs over so I can just switch between the 2, don't worry. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, what do we want here? Well, first of all, this one actually works in our favor. So what have we got here? Well, we've got a normal and an interior definition, and the interior is very close to what we need. I'm not sure why when it's in our folder, the slashes can go in that direction. However, it has been our experience that the slashes need to be reversed to get this to work. So we'll just go through and change the slashes around. Now, I think that might very well be the difference between HTML and directories. If you can remember your DOS prompt, for example, you will remember that the slashes go different to web. So it could be something to do with that, I don't know. So that's sort of the interior. Our interior is perfectly fine because we're not using the Upkeep, which requires a different interior to any other. And we'll put the Upkeep in here a little later in the video. But what do we do about the normal? Well, we actually have the ability just to take that section there, copy, paste, and then slash. So what we're doing is we're asking it to go into our model directory and use the ahlancaster.xml. Once it's in there, it will then follow the directions of that folder, and that's the key. The key is that once we're inside the Lancaster, it works perfectly fine. So we're going to save that. I'm just hitting Control-S on my keyboard. And we're going to shut it down because we're going to be making a change to the folder, and that will require us to not have it open. We're going to go up 1 level, and this is where it can get tricky. Okay, so some of you will be looking at this and thinking, well, won't that work? Because we've got a model folder up here, and we've got a model folder here. Unfortunately not. When we leave it like that, it still will take the H2S, and I think that's because the model folder has not been explicitly specified. That's my thinking. It's not actually in the SDK, this bit, but we found it to be the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename the folder first. We're going to rename it to .plain. Now, why I've chosen plain is essentially this is the standard Lancaster. We could have called it .standard, but that requires me to type more, and as you know, I'm a lazy bum. So now we've got a model.plain that is very different to any of the model folders that you will find in our folder. And that is telling the game, oh look, there's something different. I need to use this instead of what you find in the other plane. Now remember, where we go in the other folder is down to this file. But we're reading that file correctly now. We're not relying on the subvariants within the Lancaster main folder. Okay, I'm going to pause it there. I've just heard what I've just said, and it made no sense at all. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to say it properly now. Essentially, what we're saying is we are forcing the game to look at our model.plain folder and follow the instructions from there rather than believe that it's just a variant of the main add-on, which, of course, as I have said in the captions, reads the first entry, which is an H2S. So that is why that is called a model.plain. I hope that clears that up. The only other thing for us to do is to set this to plain. I'm just going to hit save. And essentially we're done, except remember what I said at the beginning, we need to change the layout.json. Now that can be as simple as running this. Now it may look as though it's got an icon, but unfortunately, fellas, it actually is a command line. Now I'm just going to do something really bad and open a command prompt via the administrator, but wherever you have this folder, you need a command line in here. It's just easier to do. So I'm just going to do that now. Why not? Yep, I'll let you do that. I'm just over here. So you'll see that now that's actually printed out exactly where I want to do. And now we need to, there are other ways of doing it as well, but I'm just going to type it out. MSFS. Layout generator.exe. And you need to give it an argument or what it's actually asking to be done. We could put in manifest.json, but that would be stupid, so don't do that. We want to update the layout.json. Now, before I do it, you'll see that the previous time I did this, it was 2:02 p.m. today. So once I hit enter, you'll see that it's now moved to 2:43. It is now written all the changes that is required for the game. Just a quick note, if you are doing this often and you're thinking, do I have to type that out every time? Just the up arrow on your arrow keys on a full cursor will bring it back, allowing you to basically see the history and hit enter again. If I hit enter again, there hasn't been a change, so you're not going to see the date modified. Let me just, nope, not going to see it. But it will do it again. So as you make changes in the sim objects, say for argument's sake, you've got a layer incorrect on your Photoshop or whatever, you need to put a new texture in. Just remember to always run the MSFS layout.generator. Now, I'm going to pause it here so that I can clear my throat, but also run the game. Remember, this is in my community folder, as is the Lancaster. So all I've got to do is wait for the game to come up, and I don't want you to have to wait. Okay, so finally, you find us here at EGSU Duxford. And this is Just Jane. I'll just pull this around. Lovely LOD model right there. And you'll find that that is Just Jane, and it is not an H2S Lancaster. So, why is that the case? Well, I did say I'd show you the virtual file system. So if you don't have this bar along the top, this is the dev mode. I'll just show it to you right now just so that you can see why we have to think a little differently. We go down to here, select virtual file system. It's on the other page, of course it is. Okay, I've actually clicked the mount points already, sorry about that. So if we check the mount points and we type in AH-Lancaster, you can see, first of all, why I renamed it, so I'll be able to see that it was in fact mounted, but also that AH Lancaster is right next to it. Now, you and I both know that that is the case from the main folders, but remember it's inside a sim objects folder. It's in another folder called airplanes, etc. So when we say we wanted to do this, and we'll just pop it back into the Sublime for a moment. So when we said down here that we wanted to come out of the model folder and then out of the livery folder and then back into the AH Lancaster folder, what we're saying is come out of the livery folder, come out of that folder there, and then put yourself into that. You'll see that according to the model.config, we should possibly be rewriting sim objects, airplanes, AH Lancaster, then model. But the virtual file system doesn't work that way. It sees it as a package, in which case you do it this way. Now, that's a simple way of doing the plain one, but what about doing a different one? Well, we're going to use Just Jane again. However, we're going to put the upkeep on it. But you're not to have a go because it's not meant for the upkeep. So you will see highlighter pink textures, but just to show you how easy that is and not. For those of you who just want to repaint the standard Lancaster, you don't really need to see any further. We are going to make a repaint help file slip for you with these model folders and the model.configs already set up. All you would then need to do is put the model.plane into your livery, hook it up to your aircraft config by just selecting or typing in the word plane, and away you go. Because, hell, it's virtual file systems and things like that. You shouldn't need to know that, but unfortunately, to do a repaint correctly, you do. It's purely because we use subvariants inside the Lancaster, and you simply cannot access those subvariants. Okay, I'm going to pause it here, and we're going to set up the upkeep. For those of you who just want to click off, well, click off and have fun. Okay, for those of you who want to possibly do one of the other ones other than the standard, this is how you go about doing it. I currently have the model.config from the model.plane folder open. I have to close that obviously because I'm going to rename it. We're going to go into our livery, and please remember that this livery was not meant for the upkeep, and but we are going to change it. So instead of model.plane, we're going to rename it to upkeep. And those of you wondering, could we have just copied the model.upkeep from the main file and copy it in here? Yes, you could, but this is just as easy, I suppose. We'll open up the model.config. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be changing these lines down here. The reason I chose the upkeep is because the interior is different as well. We can't use the model.common. We actually have to go into the other file and find out what that is. We're going to go into Lancaster. And we're going to go to the model.upkeep. So we've just opened up the model.config for the model.upkeep, and you'll note there's no // gubbins in there. That is because the upkeep is its own file. It not only has a different interior, but it's also got a different exterior, quite obviously. So with that in mind, we have to be a bit more careful about what we do. But the key is in this folder, in these files. So if we go back to what used to be the plain version, and now we see what we're supposed to write, we're going to help ourselves out by copying that first. We're going to start with the normal one first this time around, or the exterior, and we're just going to place that there. But it's not found in the model, it's found in the model.upkeep. Fat fingers, boys. Okay, so the exterior is now done. And now we're going to go back to our model.config, and we're going to copy the lanc UK int. That stands for upkeep, not United Kingdom. And we're going to do the same here. But of course, that's not found in the .common folder either. That is found in the upkeep folder. With that done, we can hit save. And now we need to, again, go back to the packages that we're working on. Come on, there we go. And we need to use the MSFS layout generator. Now, since I've actually already got it on my command system, I haven't shut this terminal window down. I just use the up arrow and hit it again. And you'll see that the layout.json changes from 2:43 p.m. to 3:10 p.m. So I'm going to pause it here again, because it takes a little while for the game to run, especially with OBS running as well. So I'll pause it here. Well, of course, there was a blooper. I forgot to change the model from plane to upkeep. You can see it says upkeep there, and I'm still referencing plane. So of course it didn't show up in the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly change this to upkeep, save that. And of course, that means we have to run the MSFS layout generator again. I'll just quickly do that, do that. And you'll see that that went from 3:10 to 3:16. And now I will pause it and we'll get the game up. So here we are. We've got Just Jane at EGSU Duxford. And it's a little unfair to Raven because he did not mean this texture for the upkeep model. But just to show you that you can easily switch it out, for the upkeep model, you'll see that there is a highlighter pink and checker board at the bottom. That's because the Just Jane texture doesn't include the upkeep textures. Well, of course it doesn't. It wasn't meant for that. So that's why things are looking a bit odd. But otherwise, yes, that is how you basically can change them out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all these model folders that I've made, this one, the plain one, and I'll also make them for the H2S and the no exhaust H2S as a zip available from our website, freely available in the download section. It'll be up there at the same time as this video. I shall call the zip Neville. Thank you for watching and happy flying. Oh, and painting. You know, someone out there needs to remind me to use the layout generator, guys. There we go.